Okay, I'll count down. Are
Yes.
you ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, three, two, one, go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Abernathy, and welcome to episode 4 of the Pixel Pusher podcast. Along with me is my awesome co host, Ryan Levac. Ryan, would you like to say hi?
Hello, everybody. It's been a while.
It has been a while, but we're back and we're going stronger than ever because we have a little bit of an announcement. You've been setting us up on the side, so I'll let you go ahead and talk about this.
Oh, yes, we are now live on Spotify.
Yes.
So if you don't want to deal with, I don't know, if you're listening on your phone and you don't want every time your phone goes into sleep mode for the sound to stop, just check us out on Spotify. There'll be a link in the description, I
Mm-hmm.
hope, right, Dylan?
Yeah,
Yes?
I'll get that all set up.
Okay. All right, there will be a link in the description for you guys to listen away.
Sweet. So we should be good there. I actually had a couple people messaging me at work about this kind of stuff. And I got a couple comments about it as well. Like, I understand YouTube is definitely not the best platform for this stuff. I guess it's just what I've always been the most comfortable with, but it's not super realistic for most people. So we're getting back on track, and we're gonna make it easier and try and get the snowball rolling a bit more. But before we get too into that, we do actually have a guest, the one and only material master himself, Chunk. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, Chunk, Charlie Trafagander. Super excited, excuse me, to be on this podcast. And I've known Dylan and Ryan for a little while, but we've never really had the opportunity to sit down kind of like this and just ramble on for an hour or two. So I'm super excited to be a part of this.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, to be honest, we did record this podcast once before. It didn't really go very
Yeah,
well.
Chunk ruined it.
yeah, a
Uh,
little bit. My
I'm
internet
kidding.
died and I ran down like 3 flights of stairs to fix it. So I'll take
I
the blame.
yeah. Well, we also didn't really prepare too well on our end either, so it was just kind of like a very last minute mishmash. It just didn't work
Yeah.
out. But this time should be a lot of fun. Like we said, it's gonna be on Spotify. We're actually streaming it live right now, so if you do want to catch these live, you can check out Ryan's Twitch, which will also be in the description, which is where we're going to be streaming these from now on. But yeah, we're actually just going to dive into it right now. So Chunk, if you'd like to sort of go over who you are and how you sort of got into games and what's going on your end of things.
All right. So I kind of started in the game sphere when I was about around 13 or 14, just going into high school. I wanted to start modding games, and it looked like everybody and their grandmother kind of knew how to do it, and I didn't. So I kind of looked up how do you make good looking mods like assets and stuff and different texture packs and all that. And I realized that I could actually do that just in my living room on the desktop, the family computer. So from there, I started learning a bunch of different software, and I really got into 3D in general. When I graduated, I decided to go into post-secondary for games, where I've been for the last 5 years. And it's been very interesting kind of going from just a small time hobby in something that you don't really get what it is, your parents don't know, they don't know how to tell your grandparents because it's a new and kind of emerging industry, even though it's relatively old comparatively to other industries. It's pretty infant. So it's kind of an interesting transition to being in the professional environment where you can look back and reflect and go, yeah, you know what, when I was a kid, I wasn't just thinking about you know being an astronaut. Something that's kind of out of this world. It's something that's actually tangible and achievable. And for all its flaws, I'm definitely happy that I'm a part of this industry now.
Oh, definitely. And I do appreciate that pun, by the way. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
um,
Thank you, thank you.
but more specifically, because you're currently in college, right? You're going into your final year, or you're in your final year.
So yeah, so I was initially I was in another program, and it was a degree diploma program. So it was college and university concurrently.
Mm-hmm.
I dropped that program in my first year and I came to where I'm at now. And again, it's another degree diploma program with Brock University, Niagara College, and I'm in my fourth and final year of this program.
I bet you
Nice.
can't wait to get out of there.
Well, you know what? I
Graduation can't
mean,
come soon enough.
by the time I graduate, I'll be 23, so I'll be a year behind my peers, but it's a little disheartening sometimes when the people coming into the program are 16 and I'll be 23.
16? Wait,
Uh,
how do
Wait,
you
there's
what?
start at
16,
16?
17. I knew people that went away when they were 16.
Oh,
That
wow.
might be the younger side. That's just an edge case, but as disheartening as it is, it's exciting to see. I'm super pumped to see people who are coming in and kind of, like super thrilled to be again getting their foot wet.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm. Oh, definitely. So since we're sort of on this topic of teaching and stuff like that, one of the things that Ryan and I kind of wanted to ask you a bit more about is we know that you're very interested in that kind of stuff. You have your YouTube
Mhm.
channel, you have that course that you just sort of released, which you can talk about a little bit right now if you'd like.
Okay.
But we wanted
Get
to sort
Lernt.
of exactly. We wa- we wanted to ask you. I guess the best way to put it is like, where do you see your interest in teaching going, and how does that sort of affect your view on the artistic side of games?
I think that if you're interested in doing, if you're interested in getting into kind of that professional field where you'll be doing a lot of the grunt work and eventually a lot of the direction, it's a good idea to always always be learning, obviously, but always be teaching as well and trying to uh, kind of freely share knowledge in that sense. Because if you're getting into more roles that are of leadership, oftentimes that requires, trickling down knowledge, which is, a form of education, as informal or formal as you want to be about it. But getting a little bit ahead of myself. For me personally, I think that my passion for what I do technically is really what drives my desire to teach it because I just enjoy talking about it. And one of the best ways that I can talk about it is by showing people what I've been doing and what I wish I was given when I was just getting into the field. One of the things that I just released, like you had mentioned, my recent course is understanding PBR, physically based rendering, and what that entails, what it is from a theoretical and conceptual standpoint. And one of the things that I felt was lacking in our industry is everybody knows kind of what certain things do, but a lot of times we take for granted um, how they came to be. And what I mean by that is we all know what pixels on a screen are. We all know that, a computer screen has tiny little pixels that has colors and we can see them. But we take for granted what that actually means. And we take for granted as, coming from an artistic side, take for granted various types of texture maps, various types of physical calculations and stuff that, people who are very invested in mathematics and physics and programming have actually had to really get into. And we just, as artists, kind of take all of that and we just consume it. And then we sit in our bedroom for like 2 weeks straight and just make art. But we don't really have any
Yeah.
conceptual basis. I think we're all guilty of it.
Yep.
No conceptual foundation um, for how we're able to go about doing that. And I think that's something I wanted to address not only in my course, but in kind of my personality and somewhat social responsibility that I, place upon myself. But I want to carry teaching with me wherever I go because it's a very open field, but I feel that oftentimes we get very stuck in trying to apply, and sometimes we kind of let our learning stagnate a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I know for me, my personal sort of way when I'm sort of trying to learn something new is like I'll find a tutorial that I find to be really useful, or a course or something like that, and I will mimic exactly what they're doing perfectly. And then from there, I'll go and I'll start applying the knowledge on a different project. But I find sometimes I get in the habit of applying that over and over and over again, the same techniques, without knowing when exactly to take the next sort of step and find that next sort of resource to learn the next, big chunk of information to improve my work, whether it's like a new lighting
Hmm.
technique, or even going back to basics with something like color theory, like a lot of the stuff that's overlooked. And getting comfortable with results that are all right. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying there. But really quickly, Ryan and I, we both got to check out your course because you shared it with us.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
Ryan, I
Yeah,
can't.
good job on that. I
Yeah,
love
thank
it.
you.
it was really good. We'll put it in the description because you guys should definitely check it out. But it's like a really digestible way of getting information, which I really appreciate. Like you broke it down in these like small, short videos explaining all these different topics, which I think is a really
Yeah,
good way to do things.
yeah,
Yeah,
part
it's
of
free,
the
right?
yeah, so with the course, it's open donation, so willing to donate as much that you want financially, and if that happens to be nothing as well, that's totally cool. Kind of the objective with the course is I want to get it out to as many people as possible, because like I was saying, I feel like it's that kind of fundamental knowledge that is not really taught as readily as, the fun, cool, shiny stuff, but is super essential. And I think that a lot of the time, or I guess the common experience, is that people will get to a certain point in their learning or their field or whatever, and they'll go like, I know what a normal map does, but I don't really know what it is. And kind of like, uh, I think it's a snippet from Parks and Rec with the Andy character, but they've gotten so far, right, getting by, that they're kind of afraid to ask now what this means because they don't want to seem like they're dumb for not knowing. And the funny thing is that most people probably couldn't answer that. So with the course, what I wanted to do was have it so that we cover a lot of content foundationally, but it's quick and it's rapid, and it cuts the fat and gets right to the point. Each of the videos are about 1 to 3 minutes each, and they're that length because I want to get to the point for people who are just coming into this and want to learn it fast, but also for people who have been around, these kinds of terminology and lingo and like applications before, and don't want to sift through a 25-minute. Oh,
Oh,
someone's
Uh-oh.
fire alarm's going off.
okay. I'm
That
gonna go
sounds
check this really quick. Oh, okay. No, it's my downstairs neighbors. Have set it off maybe once, like every day for the past week, and I know one day I'm just gonna be like, I'm not gonna check, and then my house burns down.
Yeah,
So
probably.
yeah.
let's just
But
pretend that never happened.
but they don't have to sift through a 25-minute video as well to find the relevant information.
Yeah. Well, you made it really well. It's beautifully made, and every well, the internet is a better place for it, or
Yep.
I guess because of it. It's a free resource. If you have the bucks, I'd recommend showing some love to them though, because it definitely took. How long did it take you to make this course?
Yeah, it took me. I started in April of 2017, so about a year and a
Oh
half,
Oh my
my.
god.
Yeah, see there that's a big wow.
or
Ooh.
2018. No, I think it was 2018. My apologies, not 2017. It was a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Anyways,
it's definitely well worth it. We both really like it, so we'll put it down there, and you guys can go
yeah.
check
Thank
it
you.
out.
It's appreciated.
And
Um, but we kind of just sort of wanted to extend that a bit more because you have these, or you have this one course now, you have your YouTube channel. Like, where do you want to eventually sort of take this? Like, what are your future goals with teaching in general?
Um, Open-ended.
Open
And
ended.
that's not a bad thing. It's open-ended because there's quite a lot of possibilities with it. And
Mm.
um, going through my education and latching on to things that I really enjoy about what I'm getting, but also understanding things that I feel that I'm not getting as much substance on as I would like to, and kind of putting that in my back pocket. There's a big, uh, I guess, openness for opportunity that trying to navigate it and understand which direction you want to go in is kind of where I'm at right now. I think, everybody who's ever decided on doing a project, um, kind of blank canvas syndrome is very real. Sitting at the start of kind of a journey or an artwork and thinking, oh my God, I could do anything. And then being kind of hit with that realization, like, oh my God, I could do anything, is a little overwhelming. But I think for me personally, with my kind of teaching and educating, is that I want to first and foremost continue to grow myself so that
Mm.
I can continue to teach in any, form I choose. But I think that my immediate, um, I guess, idea for continuing my education would be in the form of YouTube, and just kind of that digital platform, because it just is so easy and so almost second nature to pretty much anybody that is working in this field. So I think one way that I do want to branch out is maybe start kind of getting on. I don't know if you guys have heard of this or not, but like streaming, that's a thing.
Oh, what's that?
So yeah, I don't know. I just heard about it the other day, and maybe getting into more streaming and like Twitch, or I know YouTube has a streaming option, but I don't know how many people actually use that. So a little bit of research is going to go into it, but I
Only
think
losers stream, right? Ha ha
yeah,
ha.
that's meta.
Yeah.
And I think getting into streaming might be the next step for me, but I think that eventually my goal would be to open up kind of my own, I don't want to say school, but studio learning environment, I think would be a better, more appropriate way to uh, acknowledge it. Because the way that I think our industry, because it's so rapidly cutting edge, we have to constantly be adapting to new and innovative ways to address things. I think that traditional schooling in and of itself is definitely something that, as great as it can be, requires a little bit of innovation. And I think I would like to take kind of that traditional methodology and rapidly develop it, rapidly continue to push the boundaries with what it has to offer, and open up my own physical and digital online studio learning environment where students can kind of develop games and learn at the same time, so that there is this counterpart to their theoretical where they can go to classes that are specific to the field, but also allow them to build these practical skills that aren't necessarily specific to games if they choose to, you know, branch out later in their educational careers.
Hmm. Have
Yeah.
you put a lot of, or go ahead, Ryan?
Oh, sorry. What Dylan and I were also wondering in that sense, like moving on with branching out and stuff.
Mm.
Your YouTube channel right now, it's mostly just Substance Designer, if not all Substance Designer, right?
Hmm.
Are you
Yes.
thinking of doing any, because we know you're a big fan of Blender and stuff. Are you thinking of doing anything?
I've never heard of it. No, I definitely, I definitely want to start branching out in terms of what I cover, the range with which I cover on my YouTube channel, and that's initially how it started out. With my channel, it started out with kind of doing a few substance designer tutorials to kind of get used to teaching online. Because I'll tell you, if you tutor somebody in person, you can see the whether they're getting it or they're not, right? Just based on their face. When you're doing it online, you're trying to reach a different audience, and it's a whole beast in and of itself. And that's something that over these, almost 2 years that I've been doing YouTube now, I've gotten comfortable with understanding. I
Right.
wanted to cover broad game design or game development in general because I found that well, obviously, a lot of the pieces complement each other, right? And I
Mhm.
think this is one of the biggest feedback I get on a lot of my videos is, okay, that's cool. How can I now take this material I've made and actually use it? And my initial kind of I guess my initial thought on that is like, you can use it anyway. You can use it in any number of possible ways that you would want to, but without having kind of a few uh, pathways given to people, especially people who are just learning, that just reopens the whole blank canvas syndrome where it's like, oh, great, I can do anything. But
Yeah, like materials are an interesting one, especially from like a teaching perspective, because say
mhm.
you have someone who stumbles across your video, like let's use your most recent one, like the scales. Like someone's like, "Oh, that looks really cool. Like I like dragons and like I'm new to this. Like let's make a cool material." They get a student version of designer, they dive into it, they follow it, they get the product done, and they have no idea what to do with it. Well, that's because material making is kind of in the middle of most pipelines. Like if I'm teaching a modeling tutorial, like I can show someone how to make something in Maya, and then with that model, at least they can take a screenshot of it and show it off, and it's like here's a recreation of a physical object. But that's the very beginning of a pipeline, while materials is kind of in the middle, and it's a bit more tricky as to without knowing everything else that goes around it, it's a bit more tricky to sort of show it off properly, I think.
I agree, and it's it's funny because with materials too, I kind of attribute being a material artist to kind of like being a drummer, of which I also do that. But being a material artist is really cool, and you can do some really neat stuff with it. Being a drummer is really awesome, and you can make some awesome beats with it. A drummer by themselves oftentimes is very hard to get people like interested in what you're doing. And sometimes with materials, I find that that's kind of the same thing because people can go, ah, that's kind of cool, but like I don't really see how you could use this. Like what, you know,
I mean,
what would you use this
I don't
for?
know,
Yeah.
from like an outside perspective, but like I can say without a doubt, like for the game that we're working on right now, the
Mm.
materials like they steal the show. They are they're drop dead gorgeous. So that's kind of the first thing that I notice, and then a lot of the objects or assets are secondary to that. It's all dependent on where you are or what the context is. I do think in general I agree with you, but there are definitely times where materials are like
Yeah, I agree. It
they
comes
get
down
crazy.
to where, yeah, it comes down to what is the context of these materials, right? If you're seeing materials in a game, and this is why I really love materials, is that models are cool, but it doesn't look amazing until you add a nice material on it. And I
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
think that the
It,
life that materials brings is what fascinated me the most. But if you're seeing some guys um, art station like mine, where you've got a cracker material, you're like, okay, like this guy's off his rocker.
he's interesting to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, has a weird
um,
infatuation with saltines.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I completely agree with the material and model stuff where everyone's heard the saying where like if you can know how to model and make something but it won't look good unless you have good materials, right?
100%.
Because you can have a model with trash materials and it'll look like trash. You can have a trash model with amazing materials and it could still look good,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right? The materials is what sells the visual.
Oh yeah, 100%. I guess that also I this is a bit of a stretch, but this could also call back to your modeling skills though if you're baking a lot of stuff down from a high poly, but that's all like
Yeah.
It's all circumstantial,
it's all
right?
circumstantial, exactly. But what you're saying is completely true. It's the material makes or breaks, while the model can easily be carried by a material, um, which is kind of cool to think about. You're kind of like the unsung hero, but
The power that
the power,
material artists have,
exactly.
unfathomable. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got another question here for you. I guess I probably should have asked a bit more when we were talking about school, but I'm gonna throw it in here anyways. You know, we're going
Let's
back.
do it.
Okay, so we know that you're going to be graduating this year, and this is a very, very interesting industry to be in. It's very unpredictable. A lot of things are changing. So, knowing that you've sort of had a little bit of experience before and that you're finishing school, like going out there at the end of this term, like what is scary and what's exciting? Like how are you feeling about that whole thing?
Um, to be quite honest, very little of it is scary. I'm very excited for it, and I've been looking forward to it for quite a while now, actually. Um, as far as I'm personally concerned for this year, I'm spending this year obviously reflecting and honing my technical skills, but I really want to spend this year developing relationships, which is kind of a socialite perspective on it, I guess. But my opinion on that is that a lot of times with what we're doing in this industry, as big as it is, it's a pretty small industry, and it's very nice knowing a lot of people who are interested in getting into this field as much as you are. So I want to spend this year getting to meet people, building good rapport, and also continuing to help them understand their potential because I feel like that helps me understand mine. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it. And beyond that, I'm looking forward to actually getting, a paid position where I can um, continue to develop my skills and produce some really great content. I know that coming out of kind of your final year as an undergrad can be pretty daunting, but I think that kind of unbeknownst to myself over these past 2 years, I've been building a pretty good presence about just who I am and what I'm capable of. And I definitely attribute that to YouTube. YouTube is a great platform to demonstrate and showcase your ability, your portfolio, which is pretty critical in this industry. But beyond just showing your technical competency, I think that with YouTube and the tutorials I've been doing, it really showcases those soft skills that people don't really tell you about that employers are looking for, that you're willing to help, be a team player, willing to engage with people and work to resolve issues, are big ones that I don't know if all institutions really get on their students about, or if it's just, your technical skill will speak for itself. Because, I mean, it will speak for itself to maybe get you an interview, but once you got to go in and talk to people, you can't be someone who is just completely incapable of working in a team, because ultimately that's the goal. We're all working towards working in a team, no matter the size, 1, 2, 3 people, 500 people, it doesn't really matter. And so I'm not too worried. I'm just really looking forward to it. I think my biggest regret, to be honest, is not getting a Twitter account until like 4 months ago, because Twitter, I didn't realize, man, Twitter's got it going on. Twitter has a huge gaming community.
Yes, people always say, "Oh, dude, like hit me up on Instagram." I'm like, "No, Twitter."
Twitter.
Wait,
Yes,
Yeah.
well, Instagram also has a big one as well.
Instagram.
Like,
Okay, here's the thing. I'm
I think
glad.
game art.
Yes. Okay. Can we have this debate right here, right now? Because
Sure, let's do it.
Instagram is really, really good at what it's designed to do, which is showing off art. You can't have a discussion that way. Twitter is discussion based,
that's true. You're right.
right?
I agree with that. However, I feel that the way Twitter handles threads, I've had Twitter for like 4 to 6 months now, and I still get lost in trying to understand who said what first in a Twitter thread.
I think it's a disaster right now because I don't know if he's watching right now, but Charlie, our naughty dog boy, um, for some reason, every single time that guy tweets something, I get it in my notifications without fail every single time, and I'm
Same,
like,
me
I
It's the
too.
don't.
same way with you. Every time you tweet something, I get it in my
I'm
notifications.
like, I love that guy, but that's not a notification. It should be when someone's talking to me or something, and then I'm like halfway through his thread when I go to check the notification. I'm just like, what is going on?
I think it's based off of how many times you've liked their tweets or something.
Yeah, but it
Because
never
it's
used to
it's
be like that.
cause like for you, because you're my buddy, I like and retweet almost everything you say, right?
Yeah.
So I get notifications for you. And there's a few other people that happens to, like Taylor and Charlie and
I think you're one of those for me as well.
like yeah, I get those notifications.
I guess,
So
but
yeah, it's
like
probably
the main point is like Instagram is really really good at what it's designed to do. Like I love how it shows off images and streamlines the whole process. And I honestly have this conversation like once a week at Ubisoft. It's crazy how much this comes up.
Really.
Yeah, but it's just like I just can't see myself getting in contact with people whose art I like, or finding more resources or anything like that on Instagram. Instagram's more of like me admiring someone's final product, while
that's true.
Twitter's like a process and a discussion.
Yeah, I can agree
That's,
with that.
yeah. And I follow a lot of indie studios or like one man, which is, it's really fun to see because they'll post just random stuff about their games and about their development. And it makes you think like, oh, shoot, I want to do that. Like
Yeah,
I saw a guy, someone I followed liked someone who posted just a short little video about a game that came out recently called Sky, and it's running on mobile. And the clouds, the shaders on these clouds are amazing. And then they just continued on. They're like, "Yep, I'm just going to continue to figure out how to develop this myself, and I'm just going to document it." And then at the end of that, they did a write up on like replicating the shader from this game, and I'm like, "This is like free education, and it's amazing." And you just got to know where to look. It's not even that hard. If anyone's listening to this and doesn't have a Twitter or doesn't follow game dev people, you can start by following any one of us three, and then from there just follow a ton of game people. Even if it
yeah.
doesn't interest you, just follow them, because they're going to post something one day that's going to change your life. Every day I look at Twitter, my life has changed.
See, it's not even that. It's just, well, that's definitely a massive part of it. But it's like people will just retweet things. Like, for example, like let's use Charlie as an example again. Other Charlie, not the one we're talking to right now. Like
Yeah, I'm not
he,
Charlie, I'm Chunk.
right?
Yeah.
You're Get Lernt.
Get
Yeah,
learned, boy.
I'm Mr. Get Learnt. I think I've gotten an email. Mr. Get Learnt is how they've addressed me.
That's beautiful.
So
Get is your
uh,
first name, Lernt is your last name.
yeah,
Get
Yep.
Lernt. What's your middle name? Danger?
Get Danger Learnt. Yes, I like that.
There you go. Danger is
The
his middle name,
the
everybody.
period. The period's his middle name.
Get
Um,
Lernt.
but essentially what I was trying to say was like you'll see someone like retweet something from someone you didn't know existed, and it happens to be something that you're incredibly fascinated in. which is not something you can do on Instagram, to my knowledge. Which is why I like Twitter so much. It's like, oh, I'm following someone whose work I like, and they're following another artist who I've never heard of who just posted like some incredible breakdown on, yeah, like these clouds or something, and they just happen to retweet it, and here it is, like delivered to me directly because of my small little network of people who I know I like their work and what they're doing. Um,
Absolutely.
the information just flows crazy fast. So yeah, get a Twitter, follow us.
Well, you could say the same about a lot of other social medias as well, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, for
if
sure.
you don't have ArtStation and you're
Oh
looking to
god.
get into any art-related thing in games, then you're just jeopardizing that chance by a
Yep.
large amount. Like, you have to be on ArtStation, right? It's the number one portfolio, like
Oh
social
yeah,
media website.
that's your access to the entire industry as a whole.
Yeah. And
Yep.
also YouTube. Like, how are you supposed to like find the thing you're looking for to learn about? Like, if I'm looking up substance designer, how to make forest ground, oh, Get Lernt popped up. Like that's
Yep.
how you find that stuff. Twitter
Yeah.
is where you look for things that like, oh, I wasn't looking for that,
I was gonna
but
say
Yeah.
that's
Twitter's where
actually
it finds
really
you.
useful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's happy accidents on Twitter.
So like every social media is good for an artist.
Yeah,
It's
but
just it's because being social is good for everyone pretty much.
absolutely. And I think a lot of people, maybe like this is definitely more for like younger students, but a lot of people are scared to sort of sign up. I've heard this from many people, is like they don't want to contact artists and people like that who they look up to and stuff like that. Um, but the thing is, like, ArtStation is, it's just artists, and artists are typically like the chillest, most helpful people ever. Like they just want to sort of like make good art and help other people make good art. So go contact people. That's how I essentially got my foot in the door, just messaging people on ArtStation. Like that's how networking happens. Like
That's
everyone
how
just
you
kind of wanna,
met me.
yeah, that's how we met each other. So
Yeah.
like it just works out. Like nobody's gonna shut you down or be super mean. The worst thing that's gonna happen is they just don't respond, and like
Yeah.
that happened to all of us. So like, what can you do? But even like massive like industry like juggernauts will respond to you sometimes. So it's like it's worth the shot. Like what do you have to lose really? Um, I guess some people don't want to have like old unprofessional art on their art station, but you can always unlist it. Like if I had everything that was unlisted on my art station right now, like my post would double right away. Like I have some really
Oh
100%.
questionable.
yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
Yep. So
It's
there's just go for it. Like if you're in like your early years of college or university, like this is the time to start networking. Like most people typically leave it to like the very end, and that's when they sort of find themselves in a pinch. So
yeah.
it's
I still believe that like within your first month of being at a school for games, they should just tell you to make an art station.
yep.
Like
A hundred
it's
percent.
the best way to find like-minded people and see how they're doing things and also post your things so people can see how you're doing things. And that way you
Yes.
can kind of gauge a like for example, like people might not comment on your work, but you'll kind of know based off the feedback you get through likes. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I like about the liking system. If I post, I don't know, this material and it gets, I don't know, 50 likes, and then I post a material that gets 5 likes. Obviously, follower count has an effect on that, but like if I I personally, the follower count stays the same. If I post something 50 likes and then I post another, it's 5 likes, you'll know that the 50 likes one definitely was received a lot better. So that means it's probably a better job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ratio between likes and views I find interesting too.
That too. Yeah. Definitely another important thing.
Because I'll get some where, you know, 1,100 people saw it and 6 people liked it, which could be a little crippling as an artist, but you know, at least 1,100 people saw it, and that's a good indication of like, okay, you know what, I got to switch it up a little bit. Obviously, not to pander to anybody. You don't want your art to pander, but there is something to working towards appealing to a broader audience.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely like if you are doing any sort of game art, if you're like just starting out, make a make an art station. Just save yourself the trouble. Follow a bunch of people, post your work. Maybe you'll get a few followers and then like Dylan said, if you feel like your work has now surpassed the work that's on your art station, just unlist it. There's no issue with that.
Yep.
People like I probably have more unlisted things than I have things posted on my art station. Like it's a normal thing for people to do.
Yeah, and
If
it's.
yeah, go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah, yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I like personally, I don't know how many people have been watching my YouTube videos for a super long time, but it's like I've been making art since like 2013, like 3D art. If I it's like if I just didn't post any of that stuff because I thought it was going to be bad or it was going to get ridiculed, like I would be so incredibly behind. But it was the fact that I kept posting it on YouTube and people kept giving me advice and I could sort of build off of that, like what's good, what's not good, that I kind of sort of got a better grasp on things. And a lot of that stuff is unlisted and taken down, but it's just the fact that it was out there at some point that ended up sort of giving me like a bit of a better platform to work off of. Because like anything that you make, like I can guarantee even a year later you're gonna look back and hate it. Honestly, half the
Yep.
stuff I make,
I
like
hate everything I've made.
as soon as you hit post, you're just like, oh shit, I should have changed the lighting to be like that or something. It's like you're never gonna like it for more than like
Exactly.
10 minutes, so you might as well get it out there.
It's
Yep.
just in that last few moments of like fleeting drunkenness, do you actually start to kind of like it? And then you post it.
I think it's
And
more, it's like the feeling of accomplishment rather than like, oh, that's a cool looking piece.
well, that's the thing is once you get into the field of anything, right, then it comes down to the nitty-gritty technicals of who starts to appreciate it for its kind of like technical prowess, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can do some of, and bringing this back to materials, you get some of those guys that are doing just obscenely, disgustingly great materials and will have no practical use other than just to flex on people and go, yeah, I did this.
Like
And
the
you're like,
saltine
my
cracker.
God, like I love it and I hate it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's you're a god, but also this has no practical use. But it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Uh,
I think we're getting pretty off track, right?
yeah,
Like
I
we
see
started
the.
with talking about future goals in teaching, right? Oh no, no,
Yes.
we were talking about how you feel about graduating soon in an unpredictable industry.
Yeah, we kind of went all over. But I see we
The
have a
beauty of
question.
conversation.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I like this, though. I like how free flowing
Yeah,
it is.
it's great.
But
But
we
we
have
we
that
are
question in the chat. Do you want to go ahead and read that off? I
Sure, yeah. What do you guys think about the massive smartphone gaming marketplace and the impact it has on quality graphics? It must be challenging to attempt to make games aesthetically pleasing with the hardware limitations and view obstruction for controls. Do you think the industry is heading more towards stylized graphics like Fortnite or realistic graphics like PUBG? I think this question's pretty good for Chunk in particular because he's good with materials, so like materials are half of the aesthetics in a game,
Yeah.
right?
I I as technologically limiting, I guess, as the hardware is on a phone, um, the hardware is getting pretty intense actually.
Mhm.
And especially too with networks or not networks, markets. That's the other word I wanted. Gaming markets, pretty much in China and better parts of Asia, the gaming market is strictly mobile, not console. So
Did you hear that new Pokemon Masters game that came out?
no,
Um, so it's a mobile game. It's kind of like a gacha game, which is kind of like collecting cool things. Um, I think it made like $260 million in the first day it came out or something like that, and it's a free to play. So it's just
Amazing.
like, yeah, it's just like, okay, obviously it's not gonna go anywhere anytime soon. It doesn't look very good, but it's like a passive game that anyone can just sort of throw money at and have a good time with.
Well,
Um,
and going with, we did a lot of statistics and business analysis in my program for gaming. And one of the like global consensus that showed, I think last year, was that mobile, like phones, tablets, and all of that, gaming makes up like 51 or 52% of the entire gaming market. So more than half of games in the entire world is on a tablet or a phone. So I think it's interesting. I think by broadening the hardware, it it opens up a different venue for different kinds of games to be made. And obviously with mobile gaming, there's that bad kind of stigma with, free to play, but it's never really free to play. It's kind of like free to pay kind of deal where like you could download it for free, and then if you really want to actually play the game as it should be experienced or was meant to be experienced, you have to pay an arm and a leg for it.
Unless you want to
But
grind like
can I?
hundreds and
uh,
hundreds of
Oh,
at that
hours.
point, is it even playing?
I got a story.
It's working.
Okay, hold it. Save that story. Um,
uh,
but just to kind of answer the question, in terms of like quality graphics, I find that it makes people it limits people, but limitation for artists also breeds creativity. So as much as it puts on restrictions, it also gives artists the tools to kind of break those, and programmers and designers as well. Um, I know with Unity, they've just, kind of their big push was for scriptable render pipelines so that you can actually tailor your entire workflow to mobile games or high-end games. I don't think it's going to limit really anything. I think it's going to kind of finally push developers into understanding and determining which market they really want to hit. It's really just two different markets as far as I'm concerned.
hmm. Yeah, I think that these big AAA blockbuster games like Uncharted will always be the face of games, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be how most people experience the gaming industry, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Um, I kind of like the point that you brought up about how phones are getting pretty crazy. Like, I like that. I'm pretty sure most flagship phones these days are more powerful than a Nintendo Switch. And like you've seen Breath of the Wild, like it's gorgeous. Like you can do some incredible stuff with that.
Hmm.
So
Well, that game that I was talking about that I saw on Twitter with the clouds, it was a mobile game, and the clouds blew my mind. I don't know whose phone can run that, but like they have enough hardware to power a space shuttle as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'd say it definitely comes down to what the studio is like, sorry, which demographic the studio is looking towards.
Hmm.
Like, even then, like, if you're going after, I don't know, 20-year-old people like us, like, you can snag us with, like Dylan said, Breath of the Wild, or you can snag us with Uncharted. But then there's also, like, if you're targeting young children, like, with that are 7 years old, then they'll probably be more attracted to the cartoons and the stylized
yeah,
styles.
and also like there's this really good extra credits video on YouTube. Like extra credits is a channel that does a lot of like game design stuff, and they have a video that sort of talks about how graphics should serve the aesthetic of a game. Meaning that even though we're capable of making this crazy, really good looking stuff, like we essentially have photorealism in games. Like we just don't really have the budget to make all games look like that. But it's more how do you want to implement that budget? Like the style should be just as important as how realistic it looks, if that makes sense. Like stylistic can look incredibly good in its own right. So it's not so much like, oh, what is better? It's what's more suited for the specific game that you're working on.
For
Because
sure, absolutely.
not every game needs to be realistic, and not every game should be stylized. That's without a doubt kind of like a, you don't really have to say that. It's just a common rule. So whichever way the industry goes, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have both for a very very long time, if not forever.
Yeah,
Definitely forever. So.
yeah, I
So
agree.
I'm curious, what was your story, Dylan? If you can
Oh,
remember it.
Story time.
it wasn't really that exciting of a story. It was just I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem Heroes on my phone. It's like another one of those gotcha games where you just collect characters pretty much. It's pretty much like Waifu Simulator 2019. And
That's what I call it.
yeah, and every once in a while, like a pack that's coming out of like characters, it's all random, right? It's like you open a pack, it's like a 1% chance to get like the character you want. So every once in a while, they'll say what pack's coming out next month, and I'll save up my orbs, which is what you get the unlocks with for like a month straight. And then every once in a while, like you just won't get the person you want. And that's like every single time they get me. It's like I'll save up my orbs for like a month and a half or 2 months or something. And like I just did this like a week ago, and I went to cash them all out, and I still didn't get the person I wanted. And then, what do you know? I go to the Google Play Store and add a couple funds in, and then immediately get the person I want.
You
So
are you are the whale of your own industry.
no, it's only like $5 or something, but it's just like goddamn, like I save up so much. Like I just
Yeah.
want the waifu, man. Like show me some love.
Oh,
You
jeez.
want the waifu?
That's all I need, man. But they get
Wait,
me every
which one?
time.
Which character was it?
Do you know Kranya?
No.
Well, no, you couldn't even get her. There
I'm
was
sure
another
some
one.
viewers know who it is, though.
Yeah, people will know what I'm talking about. There was a couple
Oh,
packs.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mo's just saying $5 adds up. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just look at my league account. No, that's a problem.
Oh my. Yeah, well, I'm a little better now, but whenever I was in high school with League of Legends, I would,
Yeah.
like, my parents would give me Subway gift cards
Oh God, I know the
to go
feeling.
for lunch, and there was a way you can use your Subway gift cards to get
Red
in-game
points.
money for League.
Oh
And
man.
I would just say, "Oh, sure, the subs were delicious."
Yeah, I know what you
Forgo
mean.
eating for league cards.
Like
Yeah.
That
that's what it's
is
dangerous.
that is addiction.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
I had an Easter where I got like a $50 Subway card and I spent it all on Riot points right away. And then my family was like, "Let's go out for Subway," and I'm like, "Uh,
That's awkward.
yeah, I know."
About
Uh,
that, I just spent it all yesterday.
yeah. Oh well. Good skins
Uh,
though.
yeah,
We still have some questions here that we can go through. I know we're
yeah, we have
getting
a lot
close to an
actually.
hour.
Um,
Um, Ryan, you can go ahead.
all right. So now backtracking again, all the way back, probably like 30 minutes ago. Uh, how? Because you said you've been working while you were in school, right?
Yes.
How difficult was that for you to juggle school and work? Or was like, did you do school at like different times?
And
Did
just
you work in the summer or?
yeah,
It
so people.
was
Oh, sorry.
so yeah, I was working while going to school simultaneously.
Okay, so how difficult was it to juggle the workloads?
Incredibly difficult. To the point where it was no longer juggling, but just getting beat down by both.
Oof.
Yeah, I make it sound worse than it was, but I was very fortunate with where I was working because it was very open to come and go, whatever worked with my schedule. And initially it was twice a week that I would go to work, but it kind of dwindled down to about 5 hours a week total. Just because with what school was requiring, it was pretty demanding. And so it was kind of an interesting um, dichotomy between the two, where one game is for uh, like profit, obviously. One game is for the real world, and then the other game that I'm working on is for school purposes. And so, it was kind of fun just being able to like siphon some of that knowledge from work to then bring it into schooling in terms of like technical skills and management skills. But it was also incredibly exhausting because you have to try and give 100% for basically school and work are basically two lives in and of themselves. So to try and go back and forth between the two was significantly difficult.
Oh yeah, I could imagine. Uh, yeah, Dylan, you went through something similar to that as well, right? You were working in school and then you were only able to do like 5 hours a week as well, right?
Yeah, like I was in a very lucky position, but this is also what we were talking about before we actually started recording. This was like my mini heart attack doing an art test situation.
Yeah.
Um, so like I was really fortunate where I got in contact with some people over at Decagon, and they lined me up with some contract work, and I explained this to my professors, which they then let me sort of drop some projects so that I could do some actual work that I could put on a resume and get paid for, which if you ever find yourself in that position, 100% take that. Like the real practical experience is priceless. But I also kind of needed the money because it was like ending near the end of the school year and things were getting interesting.
You needed
Um,
to fuel your Tim Hortons runs, right?
yeah, exactly,
Needing those
exactly.
Subway gift cards.
I needed all the Subway gift cards. But it was like the end of the school year where I had, these massive projects that I had to be working on, but then I was also working on the side through Decagon, and I was always trying to sort of, like add like at least 2 hours a day where I could work on some Decagon stuff, and just trying to get 2 extra hours in a day is insane. It's insanely difficult. You'll realize how busy life gets, like once you get near the end of your schooling, and especially once you get out of school.
Oh
um,
yeah.
Things just go like, what happened, man? Like where like
Wait, what? I need to be an adult now? What do you
yeah,
mean?
things get insane. But it was just like, I was really enjoying the work I was doing with Decagon. If anything, it made me less motivated with schoolwork because I was enjoying
Yep.
what I was doing so much. And then you go back to school and there's all these like restrictions that are unnecessary, and you're like, why are things like this? This isn't how it actually is. And
A hundred
Yeah.
percent.
that was kind of interesting. One word of advice: if you ever find yourself in that position, like, good on you, but please make sure you have the time to actually do things. Like, between those two things alone, I couldn't do anything else other than work. And then, silly me, I decided to take on an art test at the same time and almost like died of exhaustion pretty much. So take care of yourself.
Yeah, be kind to yourself. Can I admit something somewhat embarrassing?
Absolutely.
So until like 2 weeks ago when we initially recorded this, I kept calling it Decagen,
Oh
Decagen.
no.
and you
Oh
guys
man.
said Decagon. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what are these guys? What these guys must be on crack. And so I looked it up again and I'm like, oh my God, I am an idiot.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, I
at
mean,
I
least you're
think I
considering,
heard you say
honest.
it once and I just ignored it.
yeah, and you just, yeah, and afterwards I'm like, frig, they think I'm a moron. I'm not getting invited on.
Oh no.
And but tomato, tomato, like
Oh yeah.
you could, but I mean, considering two guys that have actually like done work for it, I'm gonna go with that's probably how you say it.
Yeah. Well, if that's how like the head of the
That was the
company
art
refers
test.
to it.
Yeah.
They take you into uh, Google Hangouts and they're like, "All right, how do you say our studio?"
Say this, yeah.
And then if
Yeah.
you say it right, you get it. That's
Oh,
what it was.
oh, well, I'm prepared, guys. You have an in. Everybody, anyone who's listening to this right now, you have an easy in.
We
Mo
But
believe in you.
I
says,
will not say, is it Decogen or is it
oh,
Decogon or is
Yeah.
well,
it
We could have been throwing you off the whole time.
Decogon
tomato, tomato.
or
Mo says,
Decojon?
Zed brush in the chat. 100% agree.
No,
It's
it's ZBrush.
ZBrush.
Zed brush.
It's a proper
ZBrush.
noun. It's ZBrush.
Yep.
We
Yeah,
don't call
I
them
don't care.
zebras. They're called zebras.
Tomato, tomato? Tomato,
No.
potato?
All right, that wraps up the Pixel Pusher podcast,
Yeah.
everybody.
I'm now firmly
Thank you.
disowned.
Oh, sorry, no, thank you for coming, Chunk.
Yeah, this is a live exclusive. This isn't going anywhere else other than
Yeah.
Twitch.
Yeah.
See me embarrass myself for an hour.
Yeah.
You can just watch my YouTube. You don't even need to tune into this.
Oh, the
Yikes.
self burns.
Self-deprecation's okay.
Yeah. Um
All
actually
right.
we Are we ending it, or we
No,
could ask
no,
one
I was
more,
just
one or
joking.
two
No
more.
worries. We've got
Ryan
some
Ryan's
more
got a hot
questions.
date tonight. He's got to go.
Oh yeah, yeah. My girlfriend's away, so I don't have it, unfortunately.
Oh,
Um, anyways,
go for it, man.
here's the best segue you've ever heard, guys. Speaking of hot, hot
Oh,
as in trending. What's trending right now in the software world? Blender is.
Oh,
yeah.
Chunk, with all the hype around Blender, what are your honest, unbiased opinions on its future in the industry?
Yep.
honest, unbiased or honest and biased?
Honest,
Unbiased. We know where you
Oh,
stand.
unbiased.
damn.
No
um,
bias.
I'm glad. I'm happy to see that it is getting kind of the attention that, I mean, again, being a fangirl, that I felt like it deserved. But I'm glad to see, moreover, that it's getting the attention, excuse me, that is going to allow it to continue to develop to be kind of what I think it was set out to be, which is a tool, made by everybody for everybody. Um, it's kind of weird to see that, like, in the span of a week, they they managed to get like two huge uh, corporations backing them, being Epic Games and Ubisoft Animation.
Oh, there's one more.
Uh,
So this is like kind of a niche one, but I just like I
oh,
follow
okay.
this stuff because like okay, my favorite anime is Evangelion, and their studio,
Yes, yes,
Studio
yes.
Kara, I believe, they said that once they're done with this newest film coming out, they're switching over to Blender, which is a pretty big deal because they're like Evangelion is like one of the most famous animes like period ever. So
Weeb.
yeah, yeah,
No,
I
I'm kidding.
know, but I'm
I'm
just saying
kidding.
like
But
I think
it's
I've seen that one. I think it's pretty good.
yeah,
yeah.
No,
it's
no, I haven't seen that one. I lied. It's still good, guys.
thanks everyone. Thanks for supporting my
I
weebness.
thought it was I thought it was a different one, but
I'm coming
I
out as
don't
a
know.
weeb live on stream. Not that anyone was
You've
questioning it.
you've already been out. This is not, but
This is no secret.
it's really cool, especially for things like that, where studios are saying like we are completely switching over. And for people that don't really get um, kind of like studio culture, uh, there is a lot, especially for developed studios and established studios that have produced. It's it's a pretty big thing to completely switch the application that your studio uses, because the by the time that you've been established, there has been such a major pipeline completely developed around a particular software application for what it's really good at and for what it's really weak at. And oftentimes there's been even in-house developments that have been made, kind of like add-ons or plugins that are possibly proprietary to just the studio you're working at. So for it to kind of be like, um, for studios like Ubisoft or this, it was a Japanese studio, right?
Hmm?
The studio that you're talking about was the Japanese studio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for these two studios to completely just come out and say like, yeah, we're just getting rid of what we have now and we're just adopting Blender and developing our entire culture around Blender, like retraining all of our employees around this particular application is it's pretty big. And I think it's pretty promising for what Blender will become. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to say now that Blender is not the industry standard when a lot of established studios are like solely using it. Um, I'm not going to say that Blender is necessarily going to take over the world. I think that it's going to ingrain itself into what the culture is. And the fact of the matter is, with studios, again, I keep harping on it, but like Ubisoft Animation saying on their own prerogative in their own post that they will be contributing to Blender's development in the form of financing, but also developing animation tools that they'll be contributing to the truncation of Blender. Like you really can't beat that. You can't beat a major studio making tools and giving them away.
Oh yeah. It's like on top of all that as well, you're hearing about all this support. So now like before Blender was kind of like, well, sorry, everyone that knew what they were doing didn't really call Blender a meme, but it was a meme because everyone just starting, they're like, oh, Maya and Max Master Race, right?
Mhm.
Get that
So
one
like
weird
they'd
moto
laugh at
guy.
Blender users.
The one
Every,
weird moto guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, get out of here.
Go
um,
home.
so yeah, it used to be kind of a meme to the uneducated public. Like it used to be one, but now like it's no longer one. Like it's actually legit.
Man,
Like
all I
it
can
can
think about.
compete with Maya, it can compete with Max, and on top of that, it's free. So all these new indie studios coming out that can't really afford the Max and Maya licenses, they can easily just look up Blender and be like, Blender is publicly accepted by Epic Games. It's publicly accepted by Ubisoft. Like, it's not a
And
meme. I
yeah,
can make games with Blender and it's free, so it's good for my indie studio. And it's not, I'm not going to get made fun of, right?
It's the most important part.
yeah, that's all we really care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I find it like every single time something like this is brought up, all I can think about is how like the Blender guru on YouTube must just be like so happy with himself now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like 10
I
years of foresight.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing is, and I've told you guys this story before, but when I first started learning like 9 years ago, 3D, I started with Max and it was okay. I moved on to Maya and I liked it better, but none of them really stuck. And then I got to Blender. Blender was the third one that I had used and I hated it. I hated Blender with a passion and I closed it down. Like I'm left clicking everywhere and I can't select anything. So I'm like, frick this. Like yeah, gone. And then 3 months later, I'm like, you know what? I really want to get into. And opened up YouTube, typed in 3D tutorials, and like you can only ever find Blender tutorials. Like I'll look up 3ds Max tutorials and I'll get Blender before I even get a Max tutorial. Like
yeah, that's so
it's
true.
it's
Max is a weird one.
the community, right? Like there's just the huge community that it draws in.
Yeah, I can't even
And
count the amount of times that I've looked up something for Maya, a Blender tutorial, like a Blender substitute comes up. Like if
yeah,
I'm like, I don't know, like just as an example, how to model a cube in Maya. Like if I
It's a tough one.
Google, yeah,
yeah. You
if I
just
YouTube that, it comes up in Blender first. Like
well,
I've
I
clicked on it
mean,
just to see, right? Like I've
they
clicked on it and kind of copied and pasted the same workflow, I guess, into Maya.
all you got to do is download Blender and open it up, and there's already a cube. So like it's immediately better. Like
Oh, I'm gonna say that that pisses me off. I hate that part.
you can. It's a pretty easy fix, but it's
Okay,
definitely if you're coming into Blender and not knowing how to save preferences, it can be
yeah,
frustrating for sure.
yeah,
But
and the light that it comes with.
the camera, the light, I've erased all that. Like yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? It's nice to see. You know what? As a beginner coming into it, though, it's nice to see something in 3D.
that's true.
Right? Like, oh shoot, this okay, this is my viewport. Like I get what this is. But um it's gonna be an interesting couple years because I know I met a studio actually from my previous program in Ottawa there 2 years ago at EGLX and I think it was Oakville. And I was talking to them because they had graduated from my program, which was a Maya program. And I was asking them about the kind of the proprietary license for all of that. And they said, oh, we had one guy that knew Blender. And by the time we graduated and continued working on our game, we just had him teach us Blender because we can't afford Maya or Max or any of those proprietary software. And a one-time price might be okay, but a subscription is a little bit
Yeah,
harder of a pill to swallow.
exactly.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on our last question now.
All right, let's do it.
Uh, is there anything in the industry that you'd like to learn more about, or you find there's a lack of information on?
Um, I think that, well, what I felt there was a lack of information on, I made a course about. Um, I think, well, really what I'm getting into now, funny enough, is programming. I think that my skills in terms of artistry are definitely well-rounded enough that I can afford to branch off into kind of the completely different school of thought, but just equally as important with coding or programming because I like the whole kind of grand vision of game design, and I don't consider myself fitting into any one spot in particular. Even though my YouTube is very art based right now, I think that I'll be shifting that to kind of just be general game design, and part of that is programming. And this will be programming for game mechanics, programming for tools within game engines, as well as tools within Blender, because Blender is built off of the Python API. Python is one of the, and again, don't quote me on this, but one of the easier languages for a complete beginner to get into. And automating your workflow, building tools to help you work more efficiently is something that I really want to get into because it just, again, it's more efficient, it saves you time. And especially as you get more and more into the industry, you realize that time is kind of the one thing you don't have. And, by continuing to develop your workflow, thinking about different ways that you can develop it, I can get more proficient at sculpting anatomy, right? Or sculpting a face. But if I can also program in something to eliminate three of those five steps, as an artist, I definitely am my own worst enemy, but I also am a little bit lazy. So I want to try and benefit myself to make it a little bit more of a streamlined process. So I think programming is definitely where I want to take my future endeavors.
Yeah. Talking about time and speeding things up. No, okay, no, I'm not segueing this to end it. No, no, no.
Ryan's like, get out
You're
of
That,
here.
done.
the second I said that, I'm like, wait, this sounds like I'm about to end the podcast,
Good
but
night,
no,
everyone.
it's I know this guy. A lot of you probably also know him. Uh, he goes by Bartolon on most social medias. Um, but he actually, like, his name's Dennis Porter, and he works at Certain Affinity in Austin, Texas.
Mhm.
He originally started as an environment artist, and he was like, oh, all these workflows, they can be sped up with Maya plugins, right? And
Mhm.
eventually he's like, oh, I couldn't find a plugin for this, so I've tried learning how to make it myself. So this guy, he's made, I think it's like three plugins now for Maya, and all of them are ridiculously useful. Like he's the guy that made Material Manager, Auto Smoothing Groups, and Trim Mask Generation. Sorry, Trim Mask Generator was for Designer, but for Maya he made Auto Smoothing Groups and Material Manager. Those are like most people know what Material Manager is, and like Auto Smoothing Groups is also extremely useful. And this all came from someone being like, "Oh, I can speed things up." And like he had no programming experience before this. Like
Kind of
and
sounds
That's
like
now
that's
now
kind of where
he
I find myself, to be honest. Yeah.
yeah, like he started just being an environment artist. He wanted to speed up his workflow and he was genuinely curious about how to speed it up. So he took it onto himself to make all these plugins and now he's learning Python so he can make even more.
hmm.
And now he works. like he was an environment artist. Now his title is technical environment artist because
Nice.
he makes a bunch of plugins for his team at Certain Affinity.
That's
I don't know.
amazing.
I thought that was a cool story to share. Um,
That's absolutely a cool story. I love that kind of stuff. And that's even where I feel I fit, is that kind of tech artist where the programming side is very alluring and so is the art side, and there's kind of no fit.
yeah.
I'm going to follow that guy actually. I'm going to get you to send that to me because that's pretty friggin' cool.
His name is Dennis Porter on ArtStation. Dennis with two
Okay.
N.
If you see this stream at all, Dennis, I say hi, and I'm a new fan of yours.
He's a great guy. Um, yeah. So, do we have any more questions for Chunk here?
uh, I think. Well, we've been talking for about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, honestly, not to be the old man, but I kind of need to go to bed soon. So.
Come on, sleepyhead.
I've already
I
been
know.
asleep for the past 15 minutes, so
Oh, might
yeah.
have to edit that out.
Yeah, my snoring.
Yeah. But I guess for now that should be it. I think we covered a lot of really cool stuff, which is great. And sorry that we had to do this twice, but I'm really glad that we did because I feel like this went over really nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I just love talking to you guys. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to come on here.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Like it's always a good time to just sit down and chat, and I'm sure we'll do it again sometime soon. But
Yeah.
for now, I guess that's it. If you guys have anything you want to say before we totally wrap this up.
Uh, all right, Chunk. This is the time where you want to shout out all the shout outs that you have.
All right. Well, definitely, if you've never seen anything from me before, Get Lernt is my YouTube channel where I primarily do substance designer, but I'm looking to get into more general independent game development to kind of round out your skills as an individual. Take a look at my most recent course, Understanding PBR, a guide to understanding textures and the technology behind them. And what else is there? You know what? Just follow me on any social media that you can. I'll get these two to put it in the link or the description
Yep.
below so you can follow me on whatever, see what crazy stuff I'm up to.
Check out that Twitter.
Yes. Follow me on ArtStation. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to me on YouTube.
Give
Yeah.
Dylan,
Exactly.
Ryan those likes, those
Yeah.
follows.
If you're not convinced already, Chunk's a class guy, and make sure to support him on social media. And yeah, Dylan and I
Cool.
vouch for him, right?
100%.
Oh, seal of
He's a
approval. Thanks, guys.
worthy follow. All right. And then as for us, Dylan and I, make sure to subscribe to Dylan on YouTube, Tie Dye. Uh,
Yep.
yeah. And then
So
also check us out on our new Spotify home and follow us there, as well as, yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for guests that you want to see on this podcast, make sure you ask away and post in the comments of the YouTube or in the Twitch chat, anything.
yeah, or even just like a topic. Like if there's a
Yeah.
general topic you want us to cover, we can maybe try and find someone who's suited to, cover it a bit more strongly than we are. So anything that you guys would find interesting, we're happy to sort of, wrap an episode around.
Yep.
Cool.
Anyways, so that's it from us. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good night.